Imagine a soldier marching into battle with a sword and bagpipes in World War II, or a sniper so deadly, entire armies called him the White Death. These aren't legends, they were real, and they raise a haunting question. Are these men heroes or something else entirely? We'll unravel their stories and the high price of their so-called madness. Adrian Carton de Wiart was not born into violence, but he seemed destined to meet it head-on. Born in 1880 into Belgian aristocracy and raised partly in Cairo and England, he was fluent in multiple languages, educated at Oxford, and could have easily lived out his days in comfortable luxury. But that wasn't his path. Something burned in him, an unrelenting thirst for conflict, or perhaps an indifference to death that made war feel like a calling. By the time he was 20, he had torn away from his studies and volunteered to fight in the Second Boer War, lying about his age and nationality just for the chance to kill or be killed. He would get his wish many times over. Carton de Wiart became a living legend, though at great cost to his body. He lost his left eye in Somaliland, famously replacing it with a black eye patch that only heightened his grim aura. Later, shrapnel took his left hand, and his response was reportedly to rip off the remaining fingers himself when the pain became unbearable, and the doctor delayed the amputation. His face bore the scars of bullets, his body, the tremors of countless shell blasts. He was shot in the skull, hip, leg, ankle, and ear across multiple wars. His medical chart didn't read like a soldier's file. It read like a slow-motion autopsy. Yet he kept going. Through World War I's blood-soaked trenches, into the political chaos of interwar Poland, and then straight into the inferno of World War II, Carton de Wiart seemed unkillable. Even when captured by the Italians in North Africa and placed in a Nazi POW camp in 1941, he didn't relent. At over 60 years old, and with one hand, he helped dig a tunnel for months and escaped, though he was later recaptured. And still he didn't lose his fire. When asked to reflect on his war-filled life, he famously shrugged off the horror and said, "Frankly, I enjoyed the war." But who was this man really? Was he mad? A product of a time that romanticized death in uniform? Or was he something more unsettling? A man who found peace only in chaos and purpose only where others found pain? Carton de Wiart's story challenges our deepest assumptions about the human spirit. Can courage and obsession blur so thoroughly that they become indistinguishable? And at what point does a soldier stop being a hero and become something else entirely? If Adrian Carton de Wiart was forged in the fire of modern war, then Jack Churchill was a man born out of its ashes, summoned, it seems, from another century entirely. Standing tall with a fierce glint in his eye, Churchill didn't just serve in World War II, he stormed through it like a medieval ghost lost in the wrong era. While others loaded rifles and checked their maps, Jack strapped on a Scottish claymore, slung a longbow over his shoulder, and tucked bagpipes under his arm. To him, the mechanized slaughter of modern warfare wasn't reason enough to abandon chivalry, it was a reason to resurrect it. Born in 1906 in colonial Ceylon and educated at the Royal Military College, Sandhurst, Churchill didn't exactly blend into the polished world of British military decorum. Before the war, he was a professional bagpiper, a male model, and even an actor in films. He competed in archery at a national level, but when Hitler's war machine rolled across Europe, Jack transformed from eccentric officer to wartime legend. In Norway, he leapt into combat, literally, blaring his bagpipes before tossing grenades and charging into enemy fire. In France, he ambushed a German patrol and made the last confirmed longbow kill in modern military history, driving an arrow straight through a Nazi sergeant. In Italy and Yugoslavia, he captured enemy positions wielding nothing but his broadsword, often yelling battle cries as he charged. And when he was finally captured, he escaped twice. One escape involved slipping away from a German prison camp and walking over 100 miles barefoot across the Alps to safety. Nothing about this man fit the world around him. Tanks and artillery thundered across the continents, and yet here was Churchill, a one-man anachronism, treating war like a personal adventure. And when the dust settled and peace returned, Churchill felt nothing like relief. Instead, he mourned. "If it wasn't for those damn Yanks," he once muttered, "we could have kept the war going another 10 years. Was it madness, bravado, or a deep discomfort with the ordinary? Churchill's life poses a fascinating paradox. In a century that built bombs and broke nations, one man chose arrows and bagpipes. He fought not because he had to, but because something inside him thrived in the old code of courage and chaos. The year was 1939, and the world was already unraveling. In the frozen forests of Finland, winter arrived not just with snow, but with fire. The Soviet Union, seeking to swallow its smaller neighbor, sent nearly 500,000 men across the border. They expected a quick and brutal conquest. After all, the Finns were outnumbered 3-1, low on supplies, and fighting on ground that seemed more suited to wolves than soldiers. But in that frostbitten silence, there was one man who turned the entire Soviet advance into a waking nightmare. Simo Häyhä. He wasn't a towering figure or an elite assassin trained in secret camps. He was a quiet farmer, barely over 5 feet tall, with a face so ordinary it could disappear in a crowd. But give him a rifle, and he became something else entirely, a ghost, a force, a myth made flesh. Nicknamed the White Death, Häyhä operated in the snow-covered wilderness of the Winter War like he had been born from it. Over just 98 days, he recorded over 500 confirmed kills. Some estimates put the number even higher. He didn't use a scope, only iron sights. Why? Because the glare from glass could reveal his position. He even packed snow into his mouth to stop the steam of his breath from betraying him. At -40 degrees Celsius, when most men could barely feel their fingers, Häyhä was still, patient, precise. To the Soviets, it must have felt supernatural. Soldiers would fall without warning, without sound, and without mercy. Patrols returned panicked, muttering about an invisible reaper. Some started to believe the snow itself had eyes. But no legend is invincible forever. In March 1940, just weeks before the war ended, a Soviet soldier fired an explosive bullet that struck Häyhä in the face, tearing apart his jaw and cheek. He was pulled from the battlefield in a bloody heap and left in a coma. Most thought he would die. But he didn't. He awoke days later, face shattered but alive. And when he finally opened his mouth to speak through the agony, his first question wasn't about himself. It was, "Did we win the war?" What kind of man thinks like that? What quiet storm of purpose drives someone to lie in frozen woods for hours, day after day, watching, waiting, killing? Simo Häyhä never sought fame. He gave almost no interviews, wrote no memoirs, and lived most of his life in peace and obscurity. But in those 100 days, he became something more than a soldier. He became a symbol, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying figure on the battlefield isn't the one who roars the loudest, but the one you never see coming. We've seen men fight with swords in an age of bullets, haunt battlefields like ghosts, and carry the weight of decades-long wars on their shoulders. Some lived for battle, some couldn't live without it. Some were heroes, some were broken. But all of them ask us to confront one impossible question. Where does bravery end and madness begin? So what about you? Would you dig out of a POW camp at 60? March into a machine gun nest with a sword? Tell us in the comments, where do you draw the line between a madman and a legend? And if these stories moved you, shocked you, made you think twice about what war does to the human soul, subscribe.